Hello. So in this lecture and video, we're going to be talking about two of the emerging leaders in professional selling, as well as two of the early pioneers in professional selling. So to start off with, we'll go back and look at them from the history side, and I'm going to be toggling back and forth between my notes, so apologize for looking up a little bit. Got a couple screens to work with here. So in the history and the pioneers of selling. In the previous video, we talked about the history of selling. So in this, we're going to start with around the early part of the 20th century. That's when we started seeing some notable figures. And two of the figures I picked out that I wanted to highlight in this video, one being Thomas Watson Sr. He was CEO of IBM and one of the very dominant figures in the early 20th century in business culture and leadership. And the second is Zig Ziglar, a little bit more later in the 20th century, really from the mid to the late 20th century. So to start off with the history, Tom Watson, the groundwork that he laid for a professional sales organization has been, followed and copied by many other businesses throughout the 20th century and even today. And some of the key concepts that he established in the early days of IBM were that as companies become more competitive, selling strategy becomes very critical to the success of the company. Understanding your competition, understanding the environment, and understanding the market. And he instilled that behavior and that culture throughout the company. A second very key principle was that a highly trained, highly educated sales force was important to be successful to the company and in the market. So those two principles were two guiding principles that he used as a foundation for the entire sales organization. And IBM today is still one of the largest companies in the world. They have locations throughout the globe and many, many divisions. They, over time, over the past century in their existence, have sold off and acquired other businesses as they've changed and evolved with the market. And a lot of that goes all the way back to the roots that Tom Watson first established. His early career began at NCR, and he was actually convicted of Sherman Antitrust Act violations while at NCR for some of their very predatory sales practices in New York to dominate the market. About the time that that case was resolved was when he was hired. By then, it was CTR as a managing director, and within the first year was promoted to president and later renamed that company to IBM. The other notable person in history that I wanted to bring up was Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar's works, he has published, or did publish, he recently passed away in 2012, but he had published over 30 books throughout his career on professional selling. Those books are still to this day used by professional salespersons in a variety of industries. Virtually any professional sales looks to the principles that Zig Ziglar laid down, and what some of his books are even called Sales 101, how to get ahead, how to succeed. Those are almost like the Bible, the go-to guide on how to conduct professional sales. And he was also involved heavily in motivational speaking and conducting public seminars and speeches throughout the latter part of the 20th century. Looking at emerging leaders, that of course, we're trying to predict the future and who is going to be known in the future as ones that contributed very heavily to the industry or to the segment. Some that I found that today are starting to make a very strong name for themselves. One that I wanted to pick out was Steve Keating, and a second is Daniel Pink. Steve Keating has over 31 years experience in selling, writing, presenting, and training professional salespeople. Also in training in leadership and customer service and various other public speaking. And he's recognized as a professional sales presenter and for his expertise. Um, he is primarily known as still using a blog and online media to deliver his writings. He conducts speeches and seminars worldwide today, um, but uses his blog. So if you were to go on LinkedIn, you can read his blogs that are published. He publishes very frequently, almost weekly, and they're a combination of sales tactics and leadership tactics. One of the top read professional sales coaches and advisors that you're going to see on LinkedIn. Another notable one was Daniel Pink. He is also an author, and his recent books, he's published 6 books that are all New York Times bestsellers. Some of those he's still publishing today, and he's also been an executive producer of a television series, Crowd Control, about human behavior. He holds a JD from Yale University. Also has several honorary doctorates. Prior to being in professional sales and writing books on professional selling, he was also in politics. He was a professional speechwriter for Vice President Al Gore. So that is also another person that looks like, from the publishing that he's doing today, the followers that he has, he will probably go down in history as one of the more notable pioneers or emerging leaders. Daniel Pink has also been named for the past 6 years as one of the top 15 business thinkers in the world. His TED Talk videos have been watched over 20 million times. One of the top 10 most watched TED Talk videos on professional selling. So just an immense amount of current work. He appears frequently on NPR, PBS, ABC, CNN, and various other radio networks around the world. His journal articles are published currently in the New York Times, Harvard Business Review, Slate, and the New Republic, along with many other publications. So that's a name to watch if you're in professional selling. Daniel Pink. I think it's looking like, if he continues his career the way he is, that his name will be as notable as Zig Ziglar. And if you're in professional selling, you've probably heard that name many times. But I hope that gives you an idea of a couple of the notable figures from history and 2 of the emerging leaders that I've found in the industry of professional selling. Thanks.